Hello, and welcome to Off the Field and Screens, the Detroit Way, a Detroit sports podcast. I'm your host, Chad Marriott, and this week we're going to try and keep it short because it's a holiday week. We have Thanksgiving, and that means plenty of sports. It's one of the best weeks all year for sports. College football, obviously, rivalry week. Michigan State on Saturday. But before that, as Lions fans, we have a matchup on Thanksgiving Day and lots of college basketball as well. You have the NBA, the NHL going, and it's just a really, really good time of year for sports. It's a great weekend, great week for that. So let's break into this Lions game. Who are these guys? And I don't mean to be disparaging. This is a very talented team. Arguably, they have the most talented team in the NFL. You look around, they have a good quarterback. They have maybe the NFL's best running back. They have a top tier, top 5 receiver in Amon-Ra. They have plenty of weapons, obviously, on offense all around. The defense, you have, Brian Branch, you have Jack Campbell, you have Aiden Hutchinson. They're getting healthy. DJ Reed is back. You got Aleem McNeil on the line. They just have such a talented team. And the offensive line, Penei Sewell might be the best player in football. But because he's on the offensive line, he's not going to get that credit. Taylor Decker still doing it out there. Some of the other Lions offensive linemen are still figuring it out. But what we saw yesterday from the Lions is if you're a fan, I'm just going to put it complete and total fan perspective. If what you were expecting as a fan, taking completely fan perspective, if what you were expecting on Sunday was a complete and total blowout. Sorry, I keep stammering my words. I just got a text notification on my phone. You're expecting them to come play this home game and just take out all that frustration from the last couple of, maybe the last month of football. That really rough loss to the Eagles and just take it out on them. And that is not what happened. Not what happened. They struggled in a lot of ways. They got down early. They fell for a lot of trick plays, which is usually not a good sign. Because usually that's why it's called trick play. You can get somebody once. But the fact that they got the Lions a couple times is not good. The fact that they only had one sack, the defense, and it was in overtime to end the game, which, way to go, Aiden Hutchinson with that big sack. But this is the first time this year that the Lions allowed over 400 yards of offense to the other team, and it was 517. Jameis Winston came in and just... he's tough in that regard because he just does not care. He's like, I'm slinging it. A lot of things could happen. And I think sometimes that benefits him, and players that play like that benefits them because they are able to just let go of fear of losing. But yeah, the fact that the Lions defense, and I'm going to say the defense this week, that was a hiccup because they're very talented, and Kelvin Shepard has shown across the season, he has a body of work that says that's not who this team is. That was a hiccup, maybe even a trap game that they expected to come in here and blow them out. And then for the offense, you're starting to see things get put back together, but I would say there should be a high level of concern that Jahmyr Gibbs had to have a superhero-like performance for the Lions to win this game. He had in this one 2 49-yard runs, a 30-yard run, and a 69-yard run. That's 197 yards just right there. In total, yesterday, he had 219 yards. He had 2 rushing touchdowns and a receiving touchdown. I mean, he was just the team's offense. That's their MVP. I know we live and we have for a while, so it's silly of me to even put it this way, but we live in the quarterback age. If your team wins, it's because of the quarterback. If your team loses, it's because of the quarterback, which isn't necessarily true, but yeah, Gibbs really has yesterday put the Lions on his back. Goff and Amon-Ra, it felt like a couple times it was like, yeah, the connection's back. One of the best connections, most reliable connections in the NFL. And then there were a couple drops, and the one was disastrous where it tipped and was picked off. I mean, it felt like the Lions were getting ready to kind of take over the game there, and then turnover flips it back and keeps it, a contest. I think that ultimately where I'm going to sit on this is the win is a win philosophy. When you say that in week 2 or week 3, week 4, like, oh, we're going to clean it up. We're going to clean it up. We're going to clean it up. We're a better team than this. At some point, you're not a better team than this. That's who you are. But I don't think that's indicative of the talent or the coaching even. To be honest, it just feels like maybe the hopeful outlook at it is last year they peaked way too early. They're trying to time it so they're getting everything right and being playoff ready. But the numbers kind of argue against being playoff ready because they're 3-3 in their last 6 games. The teams they've beat are the Commanders, the Giants, and the Buccaneers. Now, the Commanders and Giants have 5 wins between them at this point in the season. Tampa Bay, oh, that's a great win, right? Except they have 3 straight losses and have lost 4 of their last 5. So they're not playing a really high level of football anymore. So a win is a win, but that's true. But I think 2 years ago, I would be very happy with this, or 3 years ago, I would be very happy with this. Now, after those playoff wins, breaking that 32-year gap, getting back into the playoffs, winning games, getting to the dance is not enough anymore. Now, this is a Super Bowl contender. That's the expectations. That's what we want to see. That's what we need to see as fans. Everybody's waited a long time. They've never won a Super Bowl, and we have the talent. This is by far the most talented team, top to bottom, that the Lions have ever had. And you could go position by position and make an argument for a good amount of them that this is the most talented team they've ever had. Perhaps you could say last year with Frank Ragnow and a few others that maybe they were better last year. It almost seems like yes, they were. But I'm talking about this stretch of time. This is the best Lions team, the best Lions era that we've ever had. And it feels like this is the time to try and go to be pursuing a Super Bowl. Now, if they don't win a Super Bowl every year, it can't be like, oh, the season's a failure. But they need to be making progression. And right now, it doesn't feel like they're the type of team that can compete with another playoff team. But maybe they're building these habits and things are going to go their way, and that run game and the offensive line are going to click right as the postseason rolls around. Got to get there first. Let's move on to a more exciting talk. The Pistons in the middle of a 12-game win streak, and they're getting healthy, which is crazy. I think that JB Bickerstaff has got to be. I think it's wrong that he didn't win Coach of the Year last season. But if he doesn't win it this year, it's going to be totally egregious. He has one of the hardest and most enviable tasks in the NBA is looking at the depth of this roster and saying, well, how do I divvy up these minutes? Because I think they've shown, and he said it in his press conference the other day, they have 18 guys, including all the two-way players, to say, yeah, all 18 of these guys are good enough to be NBA rotation players on a good team, on a great team. And I agree with him. The other night, I think some of the rougher patches against the Bucks on Saturday were a result of trying to figure out this new rotation with Jaden Ivey coming back. Dennis Jenkins' minutes went down in that game, but he still made major contributions. Paul Reed is obviously going to be someone that loses a lot of minutes. He got about 4.5 minutes of run. And it's going to be hard to take Javonte Green out of there as well, because he plays such good defense. I love that Pistons lineup when I've seen it a couple times where they'll have Jenkins, Green, Holland, Asar, and Stewart. That is the definition. I think they're calling it now. I think I said we should bring back the Bulldogs, but I think they're calling it the Dog Pound or Nasty Dogs or whatever. I think that whatever you want to call it, that lineup that you bring out there, that is shut down. You cannot score on that lineup. And bringing Ivy back, I was pretty impressed. He looked like you could tell like there were the jitters. But I mean, in his 15 minutes, he scored 10 points, shot 4 of 6, had a couple of assists. Sometimes he looked a little out of place, unsure. That one lineup, and this is what I mean by figuring out the rotation, he had a lineup with Jenkins, Karis LeVert, and Ivy. And it felt like everybody was like, okay, who is going to be the primary ball handler? Who's going to be the off guard? And then who's just going to be the wing? And I think there was a little bit of like, you take it. Or no, I'll take it, And I think that's a lineup that I think could work, but they got to figure out, we've not played together a whole lot. What are our roles here? And LeVert really hasn't had a chance to play with Ivy like at all. So that'll be a little bit of that growing pains that you usually associate with the first couple weeks of the season that are going to be going on with Ivy. And it'll be a little bit easier for Bickerstaff, figuring out this rotation as Ivy gets that conditioning back up, because he looked gassed a couple times when they had him out there. And I think that as time goes on, he's going to build back up, kind of like Asar did last season, where he's going to be playing, close to 30 minutes a night. I think we're a ways away from that, but that will be when it gets very difficult, because you like Duncan Robinson in that starting lineup with his outside shooting, 5 for 6 the other night. I didn't even notice that. Talk about how good a team this is. He had 15 points, and it was like, didn't even notice him just making major contributions. And that's the mark of a good team. The quiet 15, the Tobias Harris coming back too had 18 points, played really well, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, 7 of 9 shooting. Very efficient the Pistons have been, and I think this is when they're at their best. It's because they're working for good shots. I think one of the things that they struggled with last year is the first open look was considered, oh, that's the shot, but a quick 3 a lot of times, or a quick shot when the other team is on a run, is just equivalent to another turnover they get out on the break. So I think that is something to watch, and you're seeing the development. One of the people that is standing out more now for not such good reasons is Ron Holland, because I think he's still making some of those decisions, like push it too fast or jack up a quick 3. And it's the difference too. Like, people think, oh, 3-point shots are better, but that depends situationally. Ron Holland shooting an open 3 is less efficient than Cade Cunningham taking a contested layup. It just is. And maybe that someday that changes, but right now I feel more comfortable with Cade going to the basket with a guy on him, a help side coming, and him getting that bucket more than Ron Holland shooting an open 3. And I think that's that situational awareness that sometimes when they stand that far off of Holland, he needs to attack the basket, or they're leaving him that wide open. Watch how Javonte Green moves without the ball, or Duncan Robinson moves without the ball, and they get these easy layups. And it's because they're not standing and ball watching They're moving, which makes the defense have to move. And when the defense is moving, that is just as good as having a good three-point shooter for guys like Cade Cunningham, because it opens up the paint, because they can't just stand there and watch Cade on the help. Their guy is backdooring or cutting across, moving, whatever. They can't just stand there and watch. The defense can't. It's just as good as having a shooter to stretch the defense. All right. This week, I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about the Red Wings, not because I haven't enjoyed them and they're first in the Atlantic Division. What year is it that we're talking about Detroit sports and we're like, man, the Lions are making me nervous. The Pistons are phenomenal and the Red Wings look pretty good. And the Tigers look I feel like, did we take a time, like travel, like accidentally like warp back to 2006? I don't know what's happening. But not to say that the Red Wings are as good as that team, but the Pistons, they're flirting with that 37-5 start, I think it was. Not that they're going to get there. That would be crazy. But I don't know what to make of them, because you'll see something that looks really good and it's like, is this sustainable? And a few weeks ago I thought it was, because they were winning face-offs. They weren't getting caved in the zone. They were kind of keep winning the ozone times. They were winning puck battles. The special teams looked good. Power play and penalty kill. And then they'll go through a phase where it's like everything just all together collapses. It sort of reminds me, like the Tigers this season looked phenomenal. And then it was like, oh my gosh, everything went all wrong all at once for a huge stretch of time. It feels like every other week, or maybe like it's like 2 games where it's like, wow, look how good they look. And then 1 game or 2 games where, oh my gosh, how are they this bad? And the Red Wings are doing what the Tigers did. Instead of like huge segment, they're just bouncing back constantly, which I guess as a fan should give us relief, because we're not thinking, oh, this is one of the best teams in the league. We're more so thinking, we don't know who this is yet, so let's not get our hopes up, but it's exciting. There's a possibility, which I think would have smoothed out how fans reacted to the Tigers season if the way it happened differently than it did. If that makes sense. If it had been more of a smooth ride, or there had been a couple weeks where they were really good, a week where they weren't so good, and like more consistent. The high highs and the low lows make it feel, particularly the way they were prolonged for the Tigers, made it feel like I don't know what is happening. With how the Red Wings are, and really relying on some Cam Talbot, insane in the goal a couple games recently. I mean, he won them that game on Saturday, and that was unbelievable. And the comeback, I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they're gonna lose this game. And then they just like turned it on and were like, hey, and maybe we're gonna win this week. I mean, not this week, this game. So I don't know. But let's move on, because the Tigers did a little bit. They brought back Gleyber Torres, which I'm very happy for. It'll provide some stability in the lineup, because he makes contact. He's not a high power guy, but I don't think we need that. We need somebody to get on base. And before his injury late in the season, he was having a stellar season. A few things that 2 years ago, Sean Gunther, Jason Foley, Alex Lang were big parts of that 2024 team. And their time with the Tigers has come to an end. I think injury and consistency and upside and various things. Baseball moves so quickly in terms of you have a down year, you have an injury, and it's just over. The margin for, I think there's a good chance that all 3 of those guys pitch in the major leagues again, but I don't know. Foley's injury apparently is way worse than I knew about. But that margin is just like, you could be here and then And then, of course, I think the most significant one that they're not bringing back is Andy Ibanez, who had one of the best playoff moments in all of Detroit sports in the last 10, 15 years. And I just think that this year he didn't hit as well as, Jahmai Jones. And that's that right-handed platoon type guy, that pinch hitter, and I think his role kind of got taken from him. And then you're bringing back, you're bringing back Gleyber Torres on the infield, and you still have Javi Baez. You got to find somewhere for Colt Keith to get in the lineup. Matt Vierling, they're bringing back. And then, is Kevin McGonigal coming up to Detroit next season? If it was a numbers game, and I think if they had a roster spot, I think they would keep him. But at this point, the role, if they do even keep Jahmai Jones, which I think is going to be difficult to do with the current roster construction, it feels like he has the inside track to keep that role on this team. And then, the rumors now that they kept him, and I think the adding another infielder is possible. It feels like really crowded. So if they do, I would expect some either interesting lineup construction, which is not impossible with AJ Hinch, or that they're going to move on from somebody else. I don't know. Matt Vierling coming back really even makes it hard for Jahmai Jones, just because Vierling has that versatility as an outfielder and can play a little bit of third base, so that also makes it, because Jones is kind of just an outfielder, but he has that thump on the right side, so I don't know. It'll be interesting to see, but it looks like they're moving towards pitching, probably adding another starting pitcher. And hopefully this year, the starting pitching they add in the offseason can play for the team. And that's not a shot or anything. I think it would be really important to have add a veteran, add somebody that can really bring some high upside to the rotation. And honestly, the depth is not going to be a bad thing. It's like, I think they already have 5 pitchers slated that look like they could be starters, but last year we saw and we've seen time and time again, like Reese Olson out of the rotation for injuries. Having that depth is going to be a big thing too. That's like the next step. How you go from good to great is I think the incremental improvements, the depth improvements, and then maybe adding like one, either to the pitching staff or to the lineup, adding somebody it's a real game changer. Now, I'm not saying they need to add a superstar or a home run guy. Actually, if they add another player for the field, I want somebody who hits for average. All right. I think that is about all we have time for on this awesome Thanksgiving week of sports. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed, please like, follow, subscribe. Check out offthefieldandScreen.com. Got some cool articles about the Pistons, Lions, Tigers, and Red Wings. And we also do film reviews, so if you're into that sort of thing, check it out, and check out our other podcasts. Chad and Mary Ruth Go to the Movies. All right. Have a good one.